Throughout history, over 250,000 murders remain unsolved worldwide, leaving behind haunting questions, broken families, and terrifying mysteries. Behind many of these cases lie chilling killers who manage to evade justice sometimes for years, sometimes forever. Today in this video, we dive into one of the most terrifying of them all, the Butcher of Rostov, Russia's most notorious serial killer. Introduction. Throughout time, certain crimes have managed to capture the public's imagination, not because we enjoy them, but because they expose the darkest corners of human nature. Serial killers like Jack the Ripper, Zodiac, and Ted Bundy have become grim legends, their names echoing across generations. But while many know these Western cases, far fewer are familiar with the horrors that unfolded in the shadows of the Soviet Union crimes, buried not only by a killer, but by a government too proud to admit they existed. Today, we unravel the horrifying story of Andrei Chikatilo, a man whose monstrous acts paralyzed a nation and exposed the dangerous consequences of denial. Serial killings, especially during the late 20th century, presented significant challenges to law enforcement worldwide. The difficulty wasn't just catching these predators, but understanding them. In some cases, like the one we're about to explore, systemic failures and political ideologies allowed monsters to thrive. The Soviet Union, determined to preserve the image of a crime-free socialist utopia, refused to acknowledge that serial killers even existed on their soil. This refusal would cost dozens of innocent lives and leave investigators chasing shadows for over a decade. Exploration, development. Let's step back to the beginning. Andrei Romanovich Chikatilo was born on October 16, 1936, in Yabluchne, Ukrainian SSR, during one of the darkest periods of Soviet history. His childhood was marred by war, famine, and death. His family struggled through the Holodomor, a man-made famine that claimed millions. Rumors even suggested that his older brother was kidnapped and cannibalized during this time. These horrific early experiences laid the foundation for the disturbing man Chikatilo would become. As a child, he suffered from chronic bedwetting, impotence, and constant bullying. Humiliated by his physical dysfunctions, he struggled to connect with others, and yet on the surface, he appeared functional, even successful. He excelled academically, edited his school newspaper, joined the Communist Party, and became a teacher. But beneath this carefully constructed facade, dark urges brewed. His early inappropriate behavior towards students was brushed aside and never formally reported. As a result, Chikatilo continued working in positions that allowed him access to vulnerable individuals. Eventually, he became a supply clerk, giving him freedom to travel via the extensive Soviet railway network, a critical factor in his ability to stalk victims across the region. On December 22, 1978, the horror truly began. In Shakhty, Rostov Oblast, Chikatilo lured 9-year-old Yelena Zakotnova into a shack. There, he assaulted, stabbed, and murdered her, dumping her body into a nearby river. This killing unlocked something sinister within him. Over the next 12 years, he would go on to murder at least 52 victims, though some believe the true number may be even higher. Chikatilo developed a chilling pattern. He would approach his victims, often young women, boys, and children, at train or bus stations. Using promises of candy, food, or employment, he lured them to isolated locations. Once alone, he attacked them, using knives, ropes, or bare hands. His acts of violence were sadistic, stabbing, strangling, mutilating, and even cannibalizing body parts. Some victims had their eyes gouged out, tongues cut off, or genitals removed. The brutality earned him the nicknames the Butcher of Rostov and the Red Ripper. Soviet silence and investigative errors. Despite the obvious pattern in these crimes, the Soviet government was reluctant to acknowledge what was happening. The existence of a serial killer would have been an admission that Soviet society had failed to prevent such depravity, something the regime was unwilling to accept. Law enforcement was under enormous pressure to produce results quickly, leading to hasty arrests of innocent people. Dozens of suspects were arrested, and tragically, one man, Alexander Kravchenko, was executed in 1983 for a murder Chikatilo had committed. These wrongful arrests and executions only delayed the investigation further. Eventually, though, a few investigators began piecing together the truth. In 1983, forensic investigator Viktor Burakov and criminal psychologist Dr. Alexander Bukhanovsky formed a special task force. Bukhanovsky became one of the first to introduce Western-style criminal profiling to the Soviet system. His profile described a middle-aged man with sexual dysfunction, a troubled past, and a compulsive need to dominate others, an eerily accurate description of Chikatilo. Despite these efforts, Chikatilo remained elusive. He frequently changed his hunting grounds, adapted his methods, and used the vast Soviet railway system to travel and disappear quickly after his murders. With each killing, his confidence grew, while police remained powerless to stop him. Climax key moment. The turning point finally came in 1990. After murdering Svetlana Korostik, Chikatilo was seen acting suspiciously at a train station near the crime scene. Undercover officers took note and reported his strange behavior. On November 20th, 1990, Andrei Chikatilo was arrested. When police searched him, they found a knife, rope, and Vaseline, items that pointed towards sexual violence. Initially, there wasn't enough evidence to convict him, but after days of interrogation and expert analysis by Dr. Bukhanovsky, Chikatilo finally broke. Over several weeks, he confessed to murdering 56 people. He led authorities to burial sites and described his crimes in terrifying detail. What was most chilling was his calm, almost detached demeanor as he discussed his compulsions. His trial began in April 1992. In court, Chikatilo's behavior was erratic. He shouted, stripped naked, and ranted incoherently. Yet, psychiatrists deemed him legally sane. On October 15, 1992, he was convicted of 52 murders and sentenced to death. 2 years later, on February 14, 1994, Andrei Chikatilo was executed by a single gunshot behind the ear. His body was buried in an undisclosed location, ensuring he would not become a martyr or symbol. Conclusion summary. The Butcher of Rostov's reign of terror exposed catastrophic flaws in the Soviet justice system. Wrongful executions, bureaucratic incompetence, and political censorship that cost dozens of lives. But Chikatilo was far from the last killer to haunt the Rostov region. In 2018, another predator emerged, David Sarabashyan, known as the Suvorov Maniac. Over 18 years, he raped and murdered 5 women and teenage girls, evading capture until modern technology, including geolocation data from a victim's phone, finally led police to him. He was sentenced to life in prison in 2020. Another chilling case involved Roman Burtsev, dubbed the Chikatilo of Kamensk. Between 1993 and 1996, Burtsev killed 6 children before being captured. He died in prison in 2023. Why Rostov? The region's geography, railway hubs, and isolated forests offered predators perfect hunting grounds. But today, things have changed. As of 2025, no major serial killers have emerged in Rostov in over 5 years. Modern forensic tools like DNA databases, facial recognition, and surveillance cameras have revolutionized investigations. Public education, safety campaigns, and media transparency have created a society far less vulnerable to the horrors of the past. Call to action. The name Chikatilo remains one of the darkest in criminal history. A terrifying reminder of what happens when evil meets systemic failure. But it also teaches us the value of vigilance, transparency, and forensic science. Which of these cases disturbed you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap that notification bell. And if you want to dive even deeper into the world's darkest criminal minds, check out our next video where we explore the chilling unsolved mystery of the Zodiac Killer. Stay safe and stay curious.